The boat left the harbor while it was still dark. I have done that ride more times than I can count, and it never feels routine. Not really. You sit in the back of the crew transfer vessel with your gear bag between your boots, and you watch the lights of the coast get smaller and then disappear. And after that, there is nothing. Just grey water going to black water, and the engine and the men around you not talking much because it is 5 in the morning and nobody has anything to say yet. That morning we had a guest. His name was Edmund Hartley. He worked for the Energy Office, some envoy role, the kind of man who gives speeches at conferences about the green transition and shakes hands with ministers. He wanted to see the work for himself. He had asked for it specially. I remember thinking, fair play to him. Most of them never ask. Most of them just want the photo from the deck with a turbine behind their shoulder, and then they want to go home. He sat across from me in a survival suit that was a size too big, holding the grab rail with both hands, and he smiled at me like we were about to go on a nice day out. "How far is it again?" he asked. "About 120 kilometers, I said. He nodded slowly. I do not think the number meant anything to him yet. They never do, the numbers. Not until you're out in the middle of it and there is no land in any direction, and the size of the thing finally lands on you. I should tell you what we were going out to do, because that is the part that matters. We had a turbine flagging a fault. One machine in the array, throwing a warning on the gearbox monitoring. And when a gearbox starts talking to you, you go and listen, because a gearbox is the most expensive thing to be wrong with one of these and the hardest to fix once it has properly let go. So we were riding out, 6 of us, and Hartley to climb it, open it up, and find out how bad it was. There was a weather front coming in later. The forecast had a window, a good clean window in the morning, and then something pushing up from the southwest in the afternoon. Standard, we had hours. Nobody on that boat was worried about the weather. I want you to remember that, because it matters later. Nobody was worried about the weather. Hartley leaned over to me as the first of the turbines came up out of the dark. "There they are," he said, and there was something in his voice, almost like wonder, and I liked him a bit more for it. You come over a low swell, and suddenly they are just there. Hundreds of them, white towers standing in the water in long quiet rows going off further than you can see, blades turning slow and enormous against a sky that is only just starting to go grey at the edge. People always go quiet when they see it the first time. Hartley went quiet. He stopped holding the rail with both hands. He just looked. "How many?" he asked after a while. "On this array, just under 300. And all of that," he said half to himself, "goes back to the coast. All of it," I said. "Down a cable on the seabed, powers a couple of million homes when the wind is being kind. People making their tea, watching the telly, charging their phone, and not one of them has ever thought about this place once in their life." He looked at me when I said that. I do not think he had thought about it like that before either. That it is invisible. That the whole point of it working is that nobody ever has to think about it. The skipper brought us in towards our turbine. From the boat, the base of it does not look that big. That is the trick of the sea. It takes the scale away from you. It flattens everything. Hartley was looking up at it, and you could see him doing the maths in his head and getting it wrong. Getting it too small. "So," he said, cheerfully rubbing his hands together, "we go up the inside, is that right?" "There's a ladder. There's a ladder," I said. "How bad can a ladder be?" he said. Not a question, just a man being friendly. A couple of the lads looked at each other. Nobody said anything. We let him have it. It is kinder sometimes to let a man find out for himself. The boat came up against the transfer platform in the swell, rising and dropping, 2 meters up and 2 meters down, steel against steel. And I watched Hartley's face change as he finally understood that the first job of the day was simply to get off the boat without dying. That is when it starts, really. That is when the sea stops being a view and becomes the thing you are working against. And we had not even left the water yet. He looked at me. The cheerfulness was still there, but there was a question under it now. "You do this every day," he said. "Most days," I said. "Hold the rail. Wait for the call. When I say step, you step. Not before, not after. When I say step." He held the rail. To his credit, when I said step, he stepped. The transfer is the part nobody films. There is no good footage of it because the people doing it have both hands busy and no interest in a camera. You wait for the boat to ride up to the top of the swell, you time it to the half second, and you step across onto a fixed steel platform that is not moving while you're standing on something that is. Get it wrong and the sea is right there. We clipped Hartley on, walked him across one of the lads on each arm, and he made it, and he stood on the platform breathing hard and laughing the way people laugh when they have just been frightened and do not want to admit it. "Right," he said. "Right? Yes, I see. That was the easy part," I told him. He laughed again. Then he looked at my face and stopped laughing because I was not joking, and he was starting to work that out. Now, here is the thing about one of these turbines, and I tell every visitor the same, because until you understand it, you do not understand anything. The tower you are standing at the bottom of is taller than most cathedrals. The blades, each single blade, are longer than a football pitch. The whole machine, the part up top that does the work, weighs more than 300 cars stacked together, and it is sitting up there in the sky on a tube of steel in the open sea, and it has to survive everything the North Sea can throw at it for 25 years, and it has to do that while spinning. We anchor it to the seabed on a foundation driven down through the water and deep into the ground beneath it, hammered in by a machine on a ship, the single loudest thing I have ever heard in my life. And there are nearly 300 of these, and this is one array. There are other arrays. Hartley stood at the bottom of the tower with his head tipped all the way back, looking up the inside of it, and I watched the number finally land on him. The real one, not the one from the brochure. "You climb that," he said. "We climb that. There's no lift." "There's a lift," I said. "It's slow and there's a weight limit, and today it's carrying tools, so today we climb. I will give him this." He did not complain. He looked at the ladder going up into the dark above us. This thin line of rungs disappearing into a tower taller than anything he had ever stood inside, and he swallowed once, and he said, "How bad can a ladder be?" Again, but quieter this time. And this time it was a question, and he already knew the answer was bad. It is bad. It is not the height. You clip onto a safety line that runs the length of the climb, and the line will hold you, so it is not really the falling that gets you. Although your body does not believe that for the first 100 rungs, and your hands grip far harder than they need to, it is the time. It is that you climb, and you keep climbing, and your arms start to go, and your legs start to go, and you look up, and the top is no closer, and you look down, and you cannot see the bottom anymore, and you are just a man in a steel tube in the middle of the sea, with nothing above you, and nothing below you, climbing. We took it in stages. There are small platforms on the way up, where you can stand and let your arms come back. At the first one, Hartley sat down on the steel with his back against the curve of the tower and did not speak for a full minute. His face was grey. He had stopped being a man who gives speeches. He was just a body that hurt. "People know about wind power," he said eventually, getting his breath. "Everyone knows about it. It's on every poster. It's in every speech. I've given those speeches." He looked at me. "I have never once, in any of them, mentioned a ladder." "No," I said. "They never do. How long does this take you? The climb, on a good day with everything going right. The climb is not the job. The climb is just how you get to work." He laughed at that, a short laugh, no air behind it, and he got up, because he had heard the rest start moving, and he climbed. The hub. The nacelle, we call it. The part at the top, the part that does everything. You come up through a hatch in the floor of it after the longest climb of your life, and you stand up inside it, and the first thing that hits you is that it is enormous. From the sea, it looked like a small box on top of a stick. You could fit a house in it. There is a generator in there the size of a car. There is the gearbox and the main shaft and the bearings and the control systems, and it is all packed in together with just enough room for men to work around it, and the whole thing is humming, this deep, steady working hum that you feel in your chest. Because outside the blades are turning, and in here all of that turning is being caught and turned into the thing that ends up coming out of a wall socket 200 kilometers away. Hartley came up through the hatch and stood there and just looked at it the way he had looked at the array from the boat. "This is the part," I said, "that you have been giving speeches about this right here. This box," he put his hand on the housing, lightly, the way you touch something you have only ever heard of. "It's warm," he said. "Surprised. It's working," I said. "It's been working all night while you were asleep. It worked all of yesterday. It will work all of tomorrow. Nobody turns it off. Nobody is up here most days." It just does this by itself, in the dark in the sea for years. There is a window in the nacelle, a small one, and he went to it, and I knew what he was going to see, and I let him see it. From up there, on a clear morning, you look out across the whole array, hundreds of these machines turning in slow formation all the way to the edge of the sea. And the boats look like specks, and the coast is not even a line. It is just a feeling at the edge of things. He stood at that window for a long time. How much, he said. This one, just this one. How much does it do? This one machine, turning on a decent day, makes enough to run several thousand homes, I said. Just this one, and it is one of 300, and nobody making their tea down there will ever know its name, because it does not have one, it has a number, and the number is on a sticker, and I am the only kind of person who has ever read it. He turned around from the window. Something had changed in his face. The polish was gone. He was not performing curiosity anymore. He was just genuinely, quietly amazed, the way you are when a thing you thought you understood turns out to be much bigger underneath. I didn't know, he said. I've spent years talking about this and I didn't actually know what it was. Most people don't, I said. That's not a criticism. That's the design. It's supposed to be invisible. The whole point of it is that it works so well, nobody has to look at it. That is when the fault made itself known. One of the lads, Petrov, was at the monitoring panel, and he went still in the particular way that makes everyone else in the nacelle go still too. You learn to read backs. You learn to read the set of a man's shoulders at a panel. Cal, he said, come and look at this. I went and looked at it. The numbers on the gearbox were not good. They were worse than the fault we had come out for. The vibration readings were climbing, and the temperature on one of the bearings was up. And when those two things move together in a gearbox, your stomach goes cold, because that is the signature. That is what it looks like when one of these starts to tear itself apart from the inside, and a gearbox that tears itself apart at the top of a tower in the middle of the sea is a very, very bad day. And a very, very expensive one. And it is the kind of day where you stop the machine, and you call the coast, and you start thinking about a crane ship that costs more per hour than I make in a year. Hartley saw our faces. What is it? He said. What's wrong? Possible gearbox, I said. Bad one. Maybe. We don't guess up here, I said. We find out. Everyone working positions. Petrov talked to me. This is the part of the job nobody puts in a speech either. And it is the part I would put in if it were up to me, because it is the part I am proudest of. There was no panic. I want to be very clear about that. There was no shouting, no running, none of the things people imagine. 6 men in a steel box at the top of a tower in the sea, looking at numbers that meant something might be very wrong. And every single one of them got quieter and slower and more careful, not faster. Because that is what the training does to you. It does not make you brave, it makes you calm. And calm is better than brave. Brave gets people killed. Calm gets the job done. We worked the problem. We shut the rotor down and locked it, which is its own careful procedure, and the great hum that you feel in your chest wound down and stopped, and the nacelle went quiet in a way it almost never is, just the wind on the outside of the steel, and we went into the gearbox the way you go into something you're afraid of, methodically, checking and calling out and confirming, one thing at a time. No jumping ahead, because the cost of jumping ahead up there is too high. Hartley pressed himself back against the wall to be out of the way, and he watched, and he did not say a single word for 40 minutes, which I suspect was the longest he had gone without speaking in years. And afterwards he told me it was the most frightened and the most impressed he had ever been at the same time, and he had not known a person could feel both of those at once. It took us the better part of an hour to find it, and here is the thing I still think about. It was not the gearbox. Petrov found it. A sensor. One of the vibration sensors on the bearing housing had failed, and it had failed in the worst possible way, not by going dead, which we would have spotted at once, but by lying. It was reporting climbing vibration that was not there. And the temperature reading that had scared us, the bearing running hot, that was real, but it was minor. A small thing, the kind of thing you note and monitor and fix on a scheduled visit. Nothing like the catastrophe the false sensor had painted around it. The machine was more or less fine. It had been fine the whole time. It had been telling us a frightening story with a broken instrument, and we had spent an hour believing the story because the story is the kind of story that gets people killed if you do not believe it. There was this moment when Petrov said it out loud, when the whole nacelle let its breath out at once. You could feel it. The relief was physical. One of the younger lads actually laughed. And in that exact moment when every one of us was looking inward at the machine and feeling the relief of it, not being the machine, I heard the wind change on the outside of the steel. I had not been listening to the wind. None of us had. We had been listening to the gearbox. I went to the small window. The forecast had given us a clean window in the morning and a front in the afternoon, and we had hours, and nobody had been worried about the weather. And I want you to remember that I told you that at the start that nobody was worried about the weather, because the weather had not waited for the afternoon. The front had come in early. It does that. The sea does not read the forecast. While we had every eye and every nerve pointed at a problem that turned out not to be a problem. The actual danger, the only real danger that had been in the day from the very beginning, had walked up on us from the southwest, and we had not looked up once. The sky to the southwest was the color of an old bruise, and it was moving, and below it the sea had gone from the long easy swell of the morning into something with white all over it. And our boat, our way home, was a long way down there, getting smaller in it. "Right," I said, and I kept my voice exactly as flat as it had been the whole morning, because that is the job. The voice does not change. The voice especially does not change when it matters. Tools down, secure everything. We are not going down into that. Nobody is going onto that platform in this. We sit, we secure, we wait for it to pass through. Hartley, sit there against the wall, and you do not move from there until I tell you. Petrov, get me the coast. And then we waited, the 7 of us, in a locked steel box at the top of a tower 120 kilometers out, while the front came through and the whole tower moved under us, slow and deep, the way they are built to, the way they are supposed to, the movement that visitors never believe is normal until you tell them it is. And it is normal. The tower is designed to move. A tower that does not move is a tower that breaks. And I told Hartley that, and I do not think he believed me until it had been happening for 20 minutes, and we were all still alive, and nobody else looked even slightly concerned. He sat against the wall with his knees up and his back to the steel, and he listened to the storm hit a machine he had been giving speeches about for years. And at some point in there, in the noise of it, he started to talk. Not to me particularly, just out loud. The way people do when something has knocked the performance out of them, and what is left underneath is just a person thinking. "I stand on stages," he said. "I stand on a stage with a screen behind me, and there is a photograph of one of these on the screen, and it is always at sunset, and the sea is always calm, and I say words like transition and future and clean, and everyone claps, and I mean it, I do mean it, I am not lying when I say it." He looked at me, but I have never been cold. "Do you understand what I'm telling you? I have spent my whole life on the right side of this, and I have never once been cold for it. I did not say anything. Some things you let a man get to on his own. Down there," he said, "people are making their tea right now. The kettle goes on, and it works, and it always works. And it works because there are 7 of us sitting in a box in a storm 120 kilometers from anywhere. And they will never know our names, and that is not a tragedy, that is the achievement. I had it backwards. I have been telling everyone the achievement is the technology." He shook his head slowly. "The technology is the easy part. The technology just sits here being warm. The achievement is that someone is willing to come out here and look after it in this. Today, without anyone watching. That's the part that's not on the screen," I said. "No," he said, "it is not, and it is the only part that is actually true. The front took about 2 hours to pass through. They usually do. It came hard and it went, the way they do out there, and there was a strange long quiet afterwards, the wind dropping off the steel piece by piece, and then through the small window, the sky to the west started to come back, not to good, but to good enough. That ordinary grey that out there feels like sunshine after what we had just had. We waited longer than we strictly had to. That is also the job. The job is not the thing you can get away with. It is the margin you keep on top of it. When I was sure, Properly sure, not hopeful sure, we went down. The descent is its own thing. People think going up is the hard part and going down will be the rest. Going down is worse on the body in a way that surprises everyone. Your legs are gone from the morning, and now you have to ask them to control your whole weight, rung after rung after rung, the whole height of a cathedral, with the sea coming back up underneath you the lower you get. Nobody talks on the way down. There is nothing to say, and no air to say it with. Hartley went down between two of the lads, slow, careful, exactly where he was put. And I will say it again because it is the truest thing I can say about him. He did everything he was told, and he did not complain once. And out there, that is the highest thing I know how to say about a man. The transfer back onto the boat in the after-storm swell was, if anything, worse than the morning, and we did it the same way, by the half second, on the call, hands busy, nobody filming, and then we were on the boat, and the boat turned for the coast, and the towers started going small behind us, hundreds of them turning again in the cleared gray, already back at work, already invisible again. Hartley sat across from me where he had sat in the dark 12 hours before, and he looked nothing like that man. The suit was still too big. Everything else was different. "Can I ask you something?" he said. "Go on. What do you want me to say? Next time, on the stage, with the photograph behind me and everyone clapping, after today. What do you actually want me to tell them?" I thought about it for a while. It is not a question you answer fast. "Tell them it's people," I said. That's it. That's the whole thing. They've heard about the wind, and they've heard about the carbon, and they've heard about the future, and none of it is wrong, but they've never heard the rest. Tell them that every clean thing they like about their life is being held up, right now, in the dark, in the cold, by people they will never meet and never thank, and that those people are not doing it for the speech or the photo, because there is no speech and no photo. They are doing it because the kettle has to work when somebody puts it on. Tell them the green future already exists. It's not coming, it's out there right now, getting rained on, and it has a number instead of a name. He did not say anything for a long time. He looked out the back of the boat at the towers getting smaller. "That's not the speech I've been giving," he said. "No," I said. "I know. It's a better one. It's a truer one," I said. "Better is up to you. You're the one with the stage." We came in past the harbor wall as it was getting dark again, the same lights coming back up out of the water that we had watched disappear before dawn. The whole day a circle that started and ended in the same place, the way they all do, the way they are supposed to. Hartley shook every one of our hands before he got off properly, looking at each man while he did it, and he got the one detail right that almost none of them ever get, which is that he did not thank me last as the lead, the way they always do. He thanked Petrov last. Petrov, who found the sensor. Petrov, who had said almost nothing all day. I do not know if he meant anything by it. I have chosen to believe he did. I have done that ride 1,000 times, and I will do it 1,000 more. And most of the people I take out there I never see again and never expect to. But I think about him sometimes when the kettle goes on in my own kitchen, on the right side of it for once off the clock, warm. I think about whether he ever gave the other speech. I have no way to know. The towers do not know either. They are out there right now, this exact minute, while you're hearing this, turning in the dark with nobody watching, holding the whole quiet ordinary world up on a number instead of a name. And somebody is out there with them. There always is. That part never changes. That part is the only part that was ever true.